It's your MLS Power Rankings show for week 12, July 13th, a beautiful Tuesday. Matt Doyle, Andrew Wiebe here to talk through the top 10 in Major League Soccer as it currently stands, and then take your mail for 11 through 27 for those of you who are destined to be disappointed. I already had Montreal Impact fans saying, no, why not us? And you're right there. You're right on the edge, Impact, but you're not quite in at 11. Doyle, let's get it started with number one. And who else would it be but the Seattle Sounders? It's been either 1, 2, or 3 all year for them, and one for basically the last 2 months. They are the quote-unquote invincibles right now. 13 straight games without a loss to start the season. That is a Major League Soccer record, and 19 is the overall record in the regular season that can stretch between seasons. They're actually at 15 now because they won their last 2 regular season games, or didn't lose, I should say, of 2020 as well. What do you make of the Invincibles, Doyle?
They deserve their spot atop the power rankings, in part because they've been really, really good, but also in part because they've dealt with injuries all year long, better than any other team has dealt with injuries. And that's part of the thing, right? Like we've kind of dinged the Sounders over the course of the past 5 years for not really putting together a dominant regular season. It's because they didn't have depth. It was because they didn't have the ability to deal with injuries or international absences, and they're facing all of that right now. And while I would say they're not playing as well as they did to start the year, they're still playing really, really well. And it just shows that the way this team has been built and the way that Brian Schmetzer has managed the roster and managed the tactical approach to these games, it's been masterful. It has been just in kind of like a mind-blowingly ruthless and competent sort of third of the season to start the year for the Sounders. And like there's no argument. It was unanimous that they're number one this week, last week, 2 weeks ago, a month ago. They've earned it.
Yeah, it's just inevitable. Yeah, everybody knows like it. Jeremiah Oshan is here from Sounders at Heart. Unmute yourself, Jeremiah, if you would like to chat with us here about the Seattle Sounders. Look, and I wrote about it the other day before their opportunity to hit 13. It's no Jordan Morris, although we figured he'd probably be gone. It's no Nico Lodero. It's no Steph Fry at this point. Christian Roldan is gone for the Gold Cup. He's another best 11. You're talking about essentially 4 best 11 players, and Roldan's been there. He's been best 11 caliber for them to get to this point, that are now going to be out, and yet we still expect this from this team. Jeremiah, is there a level of giddiness in Seattle? That's what we get from producing Anders every single day. Where do you stand on this team?
Giddiness is I would be reluctant to say that it's giddiness, because I do think that with this start, there starts to become this expectation that at the beginning of the year, if you had told everyone this is where you'd be, there would be giddiness. But now that you're here, it's like, okay, well, now we have to hold on to this because it's ours to lose. Even though you started with house money, once that's in your, once that house money starts showing up in your bank account, you kind of start to get used to it being there.
Yeah, your quality of life is really high. Yeah, you're just like, you know what, all this disposable income, like I couldn't possibly part with this, but there could be more. I guess that's my point, right? Like Lodero's coming. Fry's coming back. TBD on Jordan Morris, though. I saw him with a ball the other day. Of course, Roldan will get back, and so will Alex Roldan, El Salvador hero. Like, give me a timeline here in your mind. As this team sort of gets players back, where are those zones for you, and how much better could they get?
I do think that they can get a lot better, and I've been kind of beating this drum for a while that the thing that's really exciting about this team is that you can look back at all 13 of the games that they've played this year, and I think you'd have a really hard time finding one game where you say, aha, that's the team that I think is going to dominate MLS, because they look so good from, maybe not minute 1 to minute 90, but for the bulk of that game. We've seen a lot of times where they've looked passable in one half and then they turn it on in the other half, right? But we haven't seen a game where they put it together all the way. I think they came pretty close against they were really good against Houston. I thought they were really good against RSL. They had that game against the Galaxy that I think was pretty dominant. But still in those games there was moments where you could see the missing pieces. You could see how much more helpful they could be with Lodero. And I think that's, in a lot of ways, that's what makes this run so impressive, is that they're grinding. This isn't like the LAFC team from 2 years ago that was just flying high, blowing teams out, playing at the top of their game. And what's funny is the Sounders are only, I think, 1 point behind their pace at where they were through 13 games. Now they have something like 10 fewer, their goal difference is, I think, something like 10 goals worse. But I think in some ways that's encouraging because they're not burning so bright that you're worried about them, flaming out. This is a team that if they get Ladero back, if they get Fry back, if they get these pieces back, Nuhu, I think that Nuhu's absence has been the one that's been the most apparent because all of a sudden their defense has started to look a little bit less dominant because Nuhu isn't there to put out some of the fires. You bring him back. I mean, this is a really exciting time, and I think if they can get through the month of July, I think in something like the position they're in now, I think it's going to be really tough for them to not see this out.
So it's not giddiness then; it's just typical Sounders fan smugness. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to make it sound like we were upset, but smugness is a good way to put it.
Oh, man. We're going to try to get this done in an hour, Jeremiah. We appreciate you, man. We're going to talk quickly, Alex Roldan. I want to before we leave here. Doyle, the Seattle Sounders, we know what they've done. We know what they will do. They have an opportunity to make history, to do another mini record, as Brian Schmetzer said. But I thought it was one of the best stories in our region, in soccer, in a long time. Alex Roldan scoring the game winner for El Salvador against Guatemala in the Gold Cup. These are the two countries that he basically had a choice to play for, including the United States as well. But these were the two that were pursuing him. He made the choice to go with his mom's home country of El Salvador. And he scores the winner in his first game. And he's only there to play El Salvador because, of course, the circumstances of 2020, 2021, our present day are so difficult when it comes to the pandemic that Curacao had to pull out this other incredible story we didn't get to see. So I just wanted to throw out congratulations to Alex Roldan on this show. I thought it was awesome to see. I was disappointed to hear from him that his parents were in Kansas City expecting to watch Christian when he scored his first international goal with both of their home countries there. I mean, that was a little disappointing to me, but the Roldan family has got to be on cloud nine right now. All right, let's get to number 2 here in these power rankings. Number 1 was the Seattle Sounders. New England Revolution up a spot, which is interesting, Doyle, because they're in their worst run of form of the season. One win, I believe. No wins. 2 losses and a draw in their last 3, and of course that last one was Toronto FC coming off the dismissal of Chris Armas. Is there cause for concern for New England?
I mean, a little bit because they're going to be without Matt Turner for the next month, most likely, and this loss was about not having Matt Turner. The first goal that Brad Knighton conceded was a gift. The second goal was I thought nicely taken. Anyway, I mean, I don't need to rip Brad Knighton after what Bruce Arena did at the press conference after.
Just let sleeping dogs lie on that one.
But this is the difference between the Sounders and everyone else, right? Because the Sounders have lost their best midfielder and lost their best goalkeeper, and they have just kept on chugging. And the Revs are facing something similar here, and not having Matt Turner, and and they're downgrading on the wing without Tejan Buchanan, and they're struggling a little bit. So there's reason for concern, but at the same time, we all know that this is Bruce and this is MLS, and all Bruce really cares about is MLS Cup. And as long as this team is healthy and whole come November, they're going to be MLS Cup dangerous.
What does whole mean in the sense of the Revs? I understand what healthy means. That's pretty straightforward. Tejan Buchanan, a lot of talk about what he may or may not do this summer, and if he excels for Canada, which it looks like he will, that may be a bigger conversation. Buxa and Bo having 2 DPs and having one sit on the bench, and I can't imagine whoever's sitting on the bench is very happy about that.
Yeah, I mean it's something that Bruce Arena has talked about pretty constantly throughout the year. And it's something that he's been trying to figure out. Who's the starter? Can you start them both up top together? And I think in some games you do start them up top in a 4-4-2, but it's pretty clear that New England's ceiling is higher in a 4-2-3-1 with one of those guys off, coming off the bench. It has been Bo starting recently, and you can't argue with that. He's scoring like a goal a game over the past month and a half. But I thought in their best run last year, it was Buxa who was the starter. There is interest in Europe for Buxa. So that's something to monitor as well.
And I get why Bruce would be like, look, I'm trying to keep you both, given his goal and given what they look best in. Yeah. Like, to have Buxa come off the bench or Bo or flip-flop or have them drive each other, that's perfect. The problem is the personal side for those players.
Yeah.
We're sitting there thinking, like, that ain't it for me, man. Like, I'm not a super sub. I'm not a bench player. I am a starter, and I'm at a point in my career where if I'm not a starter, then what am I doing?
Right. You're absolutely right. But the thing with Bruce is handling that sort of personal stuff has always been his strong suit as a manager. Talk to anybody who's ever played for him. They'll say, like, that's what he is easily the best at. So you assume that he's handling it in his Bruce way. I think the real thing for the Revs to keep an eye on is Tajon Buchanan, because I think for this team to get to the point where they're favorites, like clear favorites to come out of the East, Tajon needs to be more goal dangerous as a winger. Right now, we're talking about him having interest in Europe as a wing back or even as a fullback. And part of that is because he's devastating when he gets on the run and gets into space and can make those types of open field plays. And part of it is just he hasn't been that productive when he's played as a winger. If he can level up, and we've seen that happen in the past, right? Like guys age 22, 23, it just kind of clicks for them and they suddenly start putting the ball in the net. If that's what happens with Tajon coming back from the Gold Cup, then I think the Revs probably have a ceiling that nobody else in the East at this point can match. But that's a massive if. And it's something that, we're not going to get an answer on until August. So
3 goals, 3 assists so far in about 750 minutes for the Revs in 2021 for Tajon. That's a goal and assist better than last year and a little more than 1,000. In some ways, that Alphonso Davies injury, though, is sad for all of us who want to see Alphonso Davies play in the region. That was beneficial for Tajon and the Revs, at least to put him in the shop window. And I think it'll be beneficial for Canada as well in the long term, too. Special player, Tajon Buchanan. Number 2 of the Revs. Number 3, Sporting Kansas City. Got to rock that old school Wizards jersey right here. If you're watching on YouTube, this is some prime stuff. This is about where they've been all year, right around 3. Let's talk Gianluca Busio here because he had a standout performance at Children's Mercy Park for the U.S. They won 1-0 against Haiti. He was a sub in this one. They were giving him the Rufio Busio chance the whole time. The home crowd was they wanted Gianluca Busio the entire game. Once they got him, they were overjoyed, and they almost went into a conniption fit when he hit that like half volley from the top of the box. It got palmed away. So now Busio's being rumored with the latest Serie A club because we were trying to hit all of them. Venezia FC, which is owned by Americans, just got promoted from Serie B. And then Tanner Tessman also strongly rumored to be added there. What do you think about
reported? Jeff Carlisle had that. So
okay,
sorry,
that my bad. Yeah, no, the report is the right word there. So that's interesting. 2-1, an American ownership group, but coming up, a promoted club. What do you think about that for those 2 young players?
So, let me take it from overall. Like overall, the picture is that I strongly believe that American players are sort of undervalued on the world market. So, if you're a small Serie A club, really they've been mostly a Serie B club, and you're looking for high-end talent at frankly a budget price, MLS is a good place to shop still. Like over the past 5 years, players like Alphonso Davies, Tyler Adams have sort of boosted the stock of or the image of the MLS player in Europe. But it takes more than.
But both those guys were bargains too. Like if you're just going to go back and look at the number,
right?
That's why you make the purchase, right? Because you're like, oh my god, maybe I'm getting a $12 million player for 3.5 or 4.
Right. So
if you're newly promoted, that's a pretty good.
Yeah. So in order to create that market, I think MLS teams have sort of realized when we have good players like this, we have to be able to sell them, and we have to be willing to sell them at a reasonable price point with, I'm assuming in both cases, if the Busio one gets done, there will be sell-on fees as well. So it makes sense from MLS, and it makes sense for Venezia to go shopping here. As for the players themselves, they're getting thrown into Serie A. It's not, Serie A is a top 4 league in the entire world. Venezia are a small club. They are going to Busio's going to go there, and they're not going to be playing the type of soccer that Sporting KC play. Sporting KC have 55-60% possession, and they're creating more chances just about every game. With Venezia, they are going to be the minnows. They are going to be on the back foot in most of their games. It is going to be about grinding out points. And that's not something that we've seen Busio do that we have to do with a Sporting KC team. It is something we've seen a little bit of from Tanner Tessman, but it's just going to be a different world, and it's going to be a different approach, and it's going to take more than talent. It's going to take a level of mental toughness from both these guys if they go.
It'd be a beautiful dream for each of them. I mean, Venice, that stadium on the water, those jerseys. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just that's soccer hype beast central right there for them. Do you think that they would, you're thinking about the deal for the player? The deal is that you're playing Serie A and you have a great chance to be a starter because this club is not going to invest maybe the same way a mid-table team in the Bundesliga or wherever else you might go. I mean, do you think they can level up and thrive in those situations?
Yeah, I think they're both Serie A talents. I don't know if they're immediately walk into the lineup for a team that's probably going to be fighting a relegation battle all year. I don't know if they're that type, but that's the bet that the club is making. They wouldn't be spending this type of money on players they didn't think that they could help, that help them. And it's I said it a million times already. It's going to be a grind for these guys, but it's going to be a great test, because of the level and just mentally, the mentality to try to stay up with a team like this. It's going to ask a lot of them.
I remember young Michael Bradley going to Chievo, which is maybe a step up here. Yep. I think from Venezia in this situation, but still interesting situation for Busio and Tessman. We'll see if that one gets done. I look forward to all of you soccer influencers out there rocking your Venezia jerseys in the next year on Twitter and other social media platforms, should two Americans go there. Or if they don't. I mean, the jerseys are that sick.
Yeah, they're dope.
At number 4, the LA Galaxy. Alicia, what's up?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
It's going good. It's been a couple weeks. It's good to talk to you. No Chicharito, no problem for the Galaxy, right?
Yeah, I mean, they just keep on clicking. Their top scorer was out injured, and they got a couple of their newcomers to score, so no problem. You were talking about FC Dallas. I think they didn't provide the stiffest test in that game midweek, but the Galaxy took care of business, and that's what you got to do. So they did it.
If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw Kevin Cabral score his first goal for the Galaxy. That was huge. That had to be a monkey off his back because he'd been waiting and waiting and waiting. And we've been waiting to see that from him.
Yeah, he's had a lot of kind of near misses. You see flashes of brilliance so far where, he has a crazy touch, something he tries to chip the keeper in a pretty audacious manner, but misses the target, things like that. But it was good to see him get on the board. Finally, I do think that was a relief for him. And he's a player, I think, amongst the many, many newcomers for the Galaxy this year who, because he's a young DP, there are more expectations surrounding him. And I think the fan base was starting to get a little bit antsy regarding his lack of production so far, again, given the fact that he'd only been around for a few weeks. But no, it's good to see him get that goal, and hopefully more are coming.
Let's talk about Cabral and Grandsir, because it feels like before this game anyway, I think I remember writing that LA's Achilles heel at this point in the season was that they had really only one guy who could put the ball in the back of the net, and that was Chicharito. Cabral might have answered some of that question, but it's still very much an open question. Do you get the sense from watching them week after week that both of these guys are kind of on an upswing in terms of form, and that there is a sort of a DP level ceiling there for Cabral, and that there is a high level TAM contributor ceiling there for Grandsir? Or is it starting to feel like maybe Grandsir in particular was just a miss of a signing?
I actually would argue the other way around. I think that Grandsir has probably been a little more integral as far as being part of the link up and seeming to settle in with the team a little bit better. And granted, he's been around, I think, a month or so longer than Cabral. And I think that's the main contributor to Cabral's struggles so far, is that he came straight from his season in Ligue 2 in France, but then he went on ice for, I don't know, 6 weeks or so and wasn't able to play because of immigration red tape. And I think that he lost all of his fitness basically, then had to work back up in a new country with a new team. And I think that set him back a little bit. As far as whether or not I think they're at the level that they were signed at, I do think it's a little too early to tell. I mean, if we get to the end of the season and Cabral scored like 2 goals, then I think it's going to be really disappointing. But I think if this is kind of a jumping off point for him, and he does show a little bit more production, then I think it's going to be useful. And like you said, I mean, one of the big issues so far this season for the Galaxy has been that Chicharito has been the only consistent scorer. I think the only other player who scored more than 1 goal this season is Sasha Kljestan. So, and I think he only has 2. So it's been pretty feast or famine this season with Chicharito, which is great because he's playing well. But you definitely need some more guys to contribute beyond that. And I think, like I said, this last midweek game I think was a good sign for the team. I think they're growing into their ability to play as a team and kind of play under Greg Vanney, but they're not done yet. There's a lot more growth still to come, and we'll see what happens.
So, Alicia, I saw some big news for the Galaxy, which is that their academy director is headed to Liga MX, I believe, to Monterrey. And then there's other big news right now with some academy products. Julian Araujo, of course, signed a new big deal with the club, and Efra's getting on the field in the Gold Cup for El Tri and Tata. What do you make right now of those two, their role with the club and their future? Because anytime I see a young player sign a big contract like that, I'm thinking, okay, well, what's this leverage for? As MLS sort of changes a little bit or changes their mindsets towards selling, and you have to imagine Efra's going to have Liga MX interest as well.
Yeah, I think in the case of Efrain Alvarez, playing for Mexico at the Gold Cup is like the best possible shop window. If nothing else, Liga MX teams are going to be interested in him, and maybe even teams in Europe. So I think the Galaxy have to be thrilled that he's getting on the field so quickly for El Tri. We'll see how much he plays after this in the tournament, since I think part of the reason he got on the field so quickly was to make sure he was permanently no going back, cap tied to Mexico. But I do think he'll probably play a little bit more in the tournament, probably mostly off the bench. In the case of Julian Araujo, I think he's somebody who deals with inconsistency at times, but I think he's really come on strong this season, and he had a couple rough games to start the season. He admitted it himself, and I think he's really committed to trying to work hard and improve his game. Keep growing, work under a new coach who seems to want to give him the tools to be even better.
And that's the big change. That's the big change, right? It's the culture that Greg Vanney has instituted for young players. I mean, it's for the whole team, right? But the idea is to take young players like Efra and Julian Araujo and Cameron Dunbar and Adam Saldana and all on down the list and put them in a situation where they have responsibility week to week to improve, and that the team kind of relies on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that in Araujo's case, like right now, he is definitely the starting right back, right? Like there's no more competition. There's no more, discussion of whether or not he's going to be playing in midfield. I think he did play midfield for 1 game, but, he's playing right back right now and he's the starter. I think if he really blossoms into a top end MLS starter at his position, then, that's great for the Galaxy. But also I think the main, reason for the leverage that you talked about regarding his contract is this gives him plenty of time to keep developing, not to worry about what his future is going to be, but also gives the Galaxy some insurance in case he does get tangible European interest. There's been rumors for quite some time that there are European clubs interested in Araujo, but obviously if they have him locked up for a while, then they're going to want a good payday. And I think that there's a decent chance that they'll get that if he continues to develop. And again, I think he's having a good season. I think we're seeing progress from him week over week. And if he can continue that, then we'll see what happens.
Alicia, the elephant in the room is that there wouldn't just be European interest in Julian Araujo. What if there's interest from Club America, Cruz Azul, Tigres, Monterrey, one of the truly big Liga MX teams, do you get the sense that the Galaxy would be happy to do business with frankly teams that are rivals? That's what Liga MX teams are to MLS teams, and selling a young Mexican American academy product to a rival team. That sends a message. It really does. Do you think that would be on the table for the Galaxy?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And frankly, I'm not sure. We haven't seen in this current era of the club, where they're kind of setting their valuations at, selling on academy players. I mean, my inclination is if, a Liga MX team is giving the right price, then they're willing to talk to anyone. But if a team like that is going to lowball the Galaxy, they might just say, you know what, we're content to keep him. We're not desperate to sell him right now. But I also think that this is kind of a key moment for the Galaxy in that, they've finally been able to start hanging on to some of their academy players and signing them to pro deals. And now the next step is selling some of those guys on, right? Like making sure that they join the global market for homegrown players that, some of the other teams around MLS have been doing. That's something they haven't done. So I'm not really sure exactly how they're going to approach it, but I would be inclined to think that if they think the valuation is fair, that they would, consider it. But, again, we'll see, because I just don't know that, I have enough information at this point, because we just haven't had a test case so far. And I think in a lot of ways, either Alvarez or Araujo or both of them could be that test case that kind of sets the expectations moving forward for the team and for everyone else regarding the Galaxy's approach.
Yeah, it takes two things, right? It takes signing the kid out of your, three, developing the player, signing them, and then actually having them thrive at the first team level. The Galaxy haven't done all three of those things yet. So we'll see. Alicia Rodriguez, SB Nation, at Soccer Musings on Twitter. Anything soccer in California, anything soccer, period. Alicia is your person. Alicia, if you happen to stick around, LAFC is 10. Just saying. we would welcome you back in, but for now, we're going to keep it rolling to Orlando. So thank you so much. It's great to talk to you as always. Doyle, Orlando at number 5. They're looking for help on the back line right now. They've got a former Boca left back, Manuel Massa, in training. He's a 32-year-old. They have him there because John Moutinho's been out, Juan's been out, Kyle Smith's been playing right back. Michael Holiday, a young homegrown, has been playing left back pretty well, certainly credibly. What do you think of Orlando right now? 2 straight losses, and before that, they might have been the most consistent team outside the Sounders in the entire league.
Yeah, and I mean, they were due for a little bit of a regression. If you look at that week they had coming out of the Nations League break, that was at Toronto. Toronto were in their death spiral, and at Toronto meant in Orlando. That was home versus San Jose. San Jose were getting pummeled by everyone, and that was at Miami. So, three games against teams that have really been struggling, minimal travel involved. They were great. Well, they did well to get all 9 points, but they were never quite as good as those results sort of indicated. And it had to do with the level of play of the teams they were playing against. As the level went up over the past week, Orlando City just struggled to match it. And I think depth is a big issue. Injuries are a big issue. And just like, these are the things that, this is what happens to almost everybody in an MLS season. It's like the same exact conversation that we had about the Revs. There's no Pedro Gaese in these games.
Yeah, let's go through it. No Antonio Carlos, no Daryl DK. Yeah. Nani doesn't start. Let's see. No Gaese. They actually won the expected goals battle against the Fire despite losing 3-1. Actually won it pretty handily. Alvaro Madron is the difference in this one. I don't think Pereira didn't start in this game. Orlando, I don't think
so. Mendes was still down in
it's a laundry list for Oscar Pereira. Yep. I think he's just like, man, you're treading water just trying to keep your head above and keep your spot in the hierarchy.
And the thing is, with Orlando City, we still, in my mind, I'm still thinking back to that great team that they were in July of last year during the MLS's back tournament. And there were a lot of great things about that team, but what really made them stand out was the play of both fullbacks. Yeah, João Moutinho on the left side and Juan on the right side, and their ability to just get so many players forward and possess the ball and use those guys to create penetration and width It was devastating. And I keep thinking like, oh, just once they get those guys back, they're going to look like that. Plus, they're going to have Daryl Dike. They're going to be better. And like, it doesn't always work that way. In a large part, it doesn't work that way because of injuries. Because you almost never have your first 11 available time after time after time. And dealing with that is part of getting through the MLS season.
And if they're kicking the tires on a 32-year-old Boca player, now that's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term one. But John Moutinho had hip surgery in the offseason. He came back briefly. He's out again. They're not really saying what the issue is, other than he had an MRI, but you would assume it would go back to that. That's tough for them right now. Orlando City, 2 losses in a row here to the Red Bulls, who are not in the top 10, but maybe should be. We'll talk about that later. And the Fire, they're away to Toronto FC, which that's not away, I should say. Unless, you're hearing all this stuff right now, but Canadian teams getting back home, TBD, I guess, on that one. Real quick before we move on to 6 in the Union, Daryl Dike watch has been on, and now it's officially on. Windows are open.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think happens with Daryl? He didn't start his first game for Greg Berhalter in the U.S. at the Gold Cup.
Yep.
He had a fast start back when he returned from the championship, but hasn't quite been on a heater, you might say. What's your prediction with Daryl Dike?
I still think he's going to get sold this window. Though there does seem to be the fire's not burning quite as bright as it was a month and a half ago. But the productivity level he hit in the championship and his obvious physical gifts, as well as his improvement curve that he's shown since, he basically played his first MLS minutes a year ago. Yeah. This is not someone with a ton of time. So all of that combined, players with that profile get sold to teams in the Premier League, or the Bundesliga. And I would prefer to see him go to the Bundesliga. But I would be fine if he went to a mid-table Premier League team. There has been interest from a bunch of mid-table teams. When that type of thing comes around in MLS, no matter how much you like the player, you're kind of in a position where you have to sell.
Sometimes when it's so hot before and then it gets quiet, maybe that's a sign of things heating up on the back end. TBD on Daryl Dike. Hoping to see him against Martinique on Thursday. If you didn't check it out, Twitter Spaces once again, this time on Doyle's. We do a pregame show for the U.S. national team, go over the roster when it comes out, the lineup from Greg Berhalter, and then immediately final whistle. YouTube, MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app, Facebook, Twitter. We do the Club and Country postgame show. So check that out. Let's go to 6, the Philadelphia Union. Doyle, I keep looking ahead for the Union, and maybe that's just the CCL staying in me to August 12th and September 16th. But that's a ways away now. They don't feel to me as if they're in prime form, despite being 6th in these power rankings. It feels like something to me is just there's something missing. I want to hear from you your take on the Union and so far their season in 2021. Because if you look at the results, hot streak in the middle and then inconsistent 5-game stretches on either side.
Yeah, the things that have been missing are twofold. It's goals from the forwards. If you look at Shabilko and Santos, and I know he finally got the goal this week against the Red Bulls. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube, there it is right there. I think they've combined for 5 goals over the course of the entire season. Now, Corey Burke has picked up a little of the slack, but only a little. So the best teams in the league have guys who absolutely bury you when they get chances, and the Union's strikers haven't been those guys for the most part this year in league play. They were those guys, it needs to be said, in CCL. And the hope is that this is just a lull, and they'll get back to what they were in April, by this time next month. And the second thing is Jose Martinez was best 11 last year, as far as I'm concerned. And he's been in and out of the lineup, and it's been inconsistent through central midfield a little bit because of that. Now, Flock has done a wonderful job filling in for him. They've developed some depth through the young guys, whether Quinn Sullivan or McGlynn, a couple other guys. But it's not like last year, the Union midfield was a well-oiled machine. And this year, it's not quite at that level.
Yeah, you remove a best 11. You move parts around because of that. You have injuries. I mean, that makes sense to me. We'll see. I'm super excited for these Champions League legs. Now, the interesting thing for the Union on those and for MLS, and
I can't believe after a dozen years of doing this, you're still super excited.
Always,
for
why
Champions
not?
League.
Why not, dude? If you
Okay.
don't have hope, what's the point? If you don't have hope, just go lay down, call
What's
it a day.
the free space, Weeby? What's
Huh?
the free space?
Yeah, disappointment. But
There you go.
but that's because you have hope before. You can't have disappointment if you weren't
Okay.
hopeful. Like you
Yeah,
have to have
that's a fair
expectations. But it's interesting to me. August 12th and 16th, it's a month apart. So this is not. It's almost going to be two different veins of form. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be hard for either team really to maintain through that period. So I'm interested to see how Jim Curtin and the team managed it and how they build into it. So we shall see. New York City FC is at number 7, and James Sands is in the U.S. national team. NYCFC has been asking for this for a while. They've been not so quietly stumping. Well, they got their wish, Doyle. He was a sub, but he showed something that maybe will get him on the field more for the rest of the tournament. I believe he said afterward he hopes that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he played
Of course
really.
he does, but
Yeah. I thought he played really well. He looked very composed playing through Hades pressure. Now, granted, it was Hades pressure and not Liverpool's, but like you play the team, you play the team in front of you, and Sands did a good job of that. And it wasn't just being tidy. Like he hit a couple of meaningful passes that eliminated players and was able to pretty easily move the U.S. upfield. And that's what you want to see from the guy in the middle of the back five. And that's been the biggest change in James Sands' game over the past couple of years. Like he used to be kind of afraid to hit those passes. And now, he's not John Brooks level, but he's pretty assured when he's out there. As for the rest of NYCFC, they sure did miss him. Like you're seeing, if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing these highlights.
Oh.
They went up 1-0 over Montreal, and they ended up losing this one 2-1. And I think, NYCFC have basically played great soccer all year long, and then kind of not found the final touch. But I watched that happen over the course of the first 2 months, and I was like, they're fine. They're going to be absolutely fine. The last couple of weeks, they haven't been as good, and it's starting to show in the results and the play on the field, to the point where I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about this team.
We shall see with NYCFC. They had 3 good losses. They're opening to DC United. I mean, that was a crash bang wham DC game in the opening game of the season. But their only 3 losses are to the Crew, to the Revs, and now to Montreal Impact, who are 11 on the outside looking in these power rankings. But David Goss has started it. We'll continue at the Wilfred Nancy Coach of the Year train is off and running. Hopeful for good vibes for them. Let's go to number 8, though, the Colorado Rapids. Quietly, 6th in the Supporters Shield standings. Brian Galvan with a beautiful left-footed curler to start things off against Minnesota United. It would be a 2-0 win for them, and Rapids are up to 8 in these power rankings from 9. This is a team that, think back, we were talking about CCL just now. Remember when Anthony Hudson called CONCACAF Champions League like preseason? They went out, and then they basically lost, like, what was it? They lost, it was like lost like 9 of 11 or 10 of 11 to start the season, and he got
Brutal.
He got removed, and Connor Casey turned things around, but then Connor didn't get the job, but Robin Fraser did, and they haven't went big on DPs. They've done it out of the draft, as you see on YouTube. Andre Shinashiki chipped the keeper. Sneaky little signings or trades within the league. Michael Barrios looks like a really good move for them, etc. They went out and got Alis Abubakar and Austin Trusty in the back. Like, this is a team that I think we have to give credit to for the way that they've built and thrived without maybe doing it in sort of a traditional LA Galaxy way that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. They haven't spent big basically anywhere. And by being, I think, clever with those signings, they were able to dig themselves out of a hole, a self-imposed hole, after some not so clever signings ahead of, I think, the 2018 season when they brought in all those guys from the championship in Scotland that almost uniformly did not work out.
We thought we were going to talk about Shaquille Zangashi there, but
yeah, him as well. I think you got to go back to 2016.
That was earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've been able to do that. And a lot of the credit to me goes to Robin Fraser, because almost across the board, the players, not just the young players, but the veterans as well, have improved under him, to the point where like when they brought in Lalis Abubakar a couple of years ago, he almost single-handedly righted that ship in terms of defensive presence, and to the point where it's like, oh man, this is one of the most irreplaceable players in the league. And this year, he has barely been able to play for various reasons. And they're still kind of just chugging along. And it's because, Austin Trusty, who they got for, I think, $700,000 of TAM or allocation money that they traded to the Union, has started to look like a player who's worth twice that amount, and they'll lose Jack Price. Well, they're able to slot Kellen Acosta in, and suddenly he looks very natural playing as a 6. And they're getting solutions where it looked like only problems existed. And when you're getting that type of performance across the board, you tip your cap to the coach.
Danny Wilson.
Yeah,
for all his struggles early on, he's been one of their better players this year as well, especially helping out with the absence of Abu Bakr. And then you go to the next sort of wrinkle for the Rapids, which is that they're signing a lot of really talented academy players. And they're also playing, too, one of which is starting for the U.S. at the Gold Cup right now, and Sam Vine scored the winner against Haiti. And the other is Cole Bassett, who's had a nice season, maybe not quite the step forward that some expected, but as far as stats go, at least.
Yeah,
but in terms
of all-around play, he's been very good.
Yeah, but up and down this roster, Jonathan Lewis is starting for the U.S. in the Gold Cup. He can't get a start for Robin Fraser. He's got 2 on the entire season so far. So props to the Rapids. It's been big. Their DP, Eunice Nomley, barely played as well. Guys like Nicholas Benazet, who they brought in from Toronto, was supposed to be one of those veterans, hasn't really played, 166 minutes. It's been a banner year for the Rapids so far. We'll see if they can capitalize on this position. It's still very early, but they're 8th right now in these Week 12 power rankings. At number 9, Nashville SC. Drake Hills, I see you in there. I'm inviting you to speak right now if you'd like. Doyle, Nashville starting to turn things around a little bit, starting to capitalize. They've only lost once all season. Their problem is that they go down and then they have to fight back for draws instead of wins. But now they got Ake Loba, reportedly, per Tom Bogert, for almost $8 million. What do you think of the signing? How does he fit in for you?
I mean, it's an ambitious signing. He is a player who was excellent a couple of years ago for, I believe it was Querétaro in Liga MX, and then he got a big money move
with Fabian Castillo, by the way.
You're right, and got that big money move to Monterrey, and it didn't quite work out. And I think Nashville were well positioned to sort of capitalize on the fact that Monterrey wanted to cut their budget a little bit, wanted to move off him, and Ake Loba has a chance to be one of the better forwards in MLS. I don't know if he's a true number 9. He's kind of more of a second forward. I could see him playing alongside a Jonder Cadiz or CJ Sapong, and maybe that is indicative of what Gary Smith has coming. And maybe we're looking at a team that's going to end up playing a 3-5-2, because over the past couple of weeks, it's been that 3 or 5 at the back. And I think they've looked a little bit better playing that way than they've been with 4 in the back earlier this year.
You there, Drake? Somebody is. Where's my mug that says unmute yourself?
Is my mic on, fellas?
Oh, the mic is officially on. Drake, tell me where Ake Loba is going to play for this team. I believe he's going to be eligible this weekend, no?
Yeah, Ake will be. It was nice to actually watch him personally in training for the first time and just get to look at how he moves, get a look at some of his maybe go-tos off the dribble, taking a look at just his stature, and actually getting a chance to see him go up against some of the other guys in the team. In terms of his personality and his mentality when he's one-on-one, much different than Randall Leal, who's more of an elusive, more technical player. I think Ake has a little more power to him, a little more athleticism, a little more aggression in how he moves with the ball. So I think, that's a question, your first question, Weeby, about, what's it going to look like with him and the team. That's actually a question I have for Gary on Thursday, just because of, if you put him in there, what does that mean for an Alex Muyl? Does he go to the bench? Does the shape change? How does the shape change? Do you go back to a 2 front with CJ Sapong up there? I think those are pivotal questions, and I think that adds to the versatility of what Nashville can do, what they've proven to be able to do. So I think we'll see, probably not sure about a start for Ake Loba, but I think once he does come on against Chicago this weekend, I think we'll see something new that we probably haven't seen before with Nashville.
I got a two-part question for you, Drake. One is, do you have a sense? You mentioned a shape change. Do you have a sense of a particular formation that Gary Smith and Mike Jacobs are trying to get to with these signings? Because I think we went into the last year expecting it to be a 4-2-3-1. At times it was that. At times it was more of a 4-4-2. This year, been all over the shop a little bit. And regardless of what formation they end up going with as a default, what does all of this say about Hani Mukhtar, the guy wearing the number 10?
I think it's moving Hani more into a goal-scoring opportunity type of role. I look. I mean, Hani is a guy who, yes, they want to pull the strings and attack with him and let him be the ultimate creator. But I've said this since pretty much midway through last season that I think Hani is more dangerous when he's sniffing out goals than trying to set up others. I just think that he gives and offers the best talent to do so, as opposed to maybe sitting back and trying to play balls into behind for guys like Sapong or Cadiz, or trying to link up with Leal, which doesn't really happen much. But I think in with an Ake Loba addition, you might call for more of an attacking trio than an attacking duo. But yeah, I think. Listen, we've seen with this Nashville team against Philly when they broke out the 3-5-2, 3-4-3, first half to second half, seeing in a back three for once. We've already seen the 4-4-2 and how that could be lethal against a team like New England, taking advantage of, obviously how, they want to play with Buchanan on the wing back position or out wide. I think maybe they go back to that. Maybe it's more of a 4-4-2. Maybe Mike Jacobs and Gary Smith are looking to maybe fill that out a little bit now that they have an extra, starting level talent to match with Sapong. So could it be a 4-4-2 or could it be simply just Ake Loba trying to steal the final striker spot in the 4-2-3-1? I think that remains to be seen.
Home against the Fire this weekend. Nashville SC have not lost but one game, and that was away to the Red Bulls, who are one of those teams that maybe need to get into this top 10 soon. They're playing that well. Drake Hills, go check him out on Twitter. You can jump in right now. He's over on the USA Today Network and, of course, at the Tennessean. Drake, appreciate you, man. I'm going to remove you from speakers, and we'll finish this thing up with LAFC, Doyle. They're at number 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, nice win against Austin in Austin. That 4-1 dream didn't last forever.
Yeah.
Where do LAFC stand? We've just been saying all year, like, Bob's trying to figure something out, and part of that is figuring out how to get Carlos Vela on the field every single game.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the project, where does the attempt to win MLS Cup? Because, look, that's still the deal. Where does that stand for you?
They don't look like an MLS Cup contending team right now, even though I think any realistic person would look at the talent on that side and say this team should be one of the 3 or 4 best in the league. That said, even as they're not playing particularly well, they're 4-2-1 in their past 7. Their 2 losses were games they gave away, frankly. Home versus NYCFC, where they melted down at the end, and then at Sporting KC, where they melted down at the end. So, I mean, this feels about right. They're 10th in the league is pretty much mid-table, but still in the playoffs, and that's what LAFC feel like. I think that the fans are probably disappointed, though, because just based upon the volume of talent in this roster, they should be much, much higher.
Well, that's the job the rest of the way for Bob Bradley, and there's a long, long way to go. Only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 teams have played 13 games.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is below that threshold. So if you know this math, you know that means there are more than 20 games for every single team in this league. MLS is back this weekend. Of course, you're dealing with the Gold Cup and trying to do double duty, and that gets difficult. I know Jamaica 2-0 winners against Suriname last night. Costa Rica knocking off Guadeloupe as well. Today you have Group D, and then it's back to Group A on Wednesday, and then the U.S. takes on Martinique, Haiti, and Canada on Thursday. And then MLS is back on Saturday. You have a full slate. ESPN game, Atlanta, New England, Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern. MLS Live on ESPN Plus, always a must-have. Then back on Sunday, ESPN, Minnesota, Seattle at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's a big one at Allianz Field. Here are your power rankings for Week 12. Seattle 1, New England 2, KC 3, Galaxy 4, big jump for them, up 3 spots. Orlando at 5, Philly holding true at 6, New York City FC at 7, Colorado at 8, Nashville at 9, and LAFC pushes into the top 10